She's passionate about empowering youth across the education spectrum, from the ICB's computer literacy course to its professional certificate learning pathways. Her focus is on equipping individuals with the skills, knowledge, and internationally endorsed credentials needed to thrive in an increasingly competitive global workforce. An advocate for lifelong learning, Barbara champions certification pathways that open doors for learners, and she says she really would like to empower South Africa for them to be ready for global opportunities. Let us welcome Barbara. Good evening. How are you doing?
All good, and thank you so much for having me this evening.
Thank you. Barbara, a lot of South Africans are unaware of what it is that AI is. I know that we're saying at about 16% of adults owning a computer. No, those figures are terrible. What can we do?
You know, I'm going to speak about confidence a lot in the discussion today. But the biggest barrier that a lot of South Africans actually have is the first time that they actually encounter a computer properly is on their first day at their tertiary education or the first day of their job, which puts them at a distinct disadvantage. Only 16% of adults actually own a computer, which makes about 26 of households that actually have computers at home. You know, we're in a position that municipal libraries are starting to offer computer access and internet programs, which is great. But you typically need your ID, and then there's a limited time frame in which that you can use this. And there's a deeper issue. You know, your first encounter of a keyboard is the moment you're expected to submit an assignment. I mean, you're already so nervous about the assignment, but then you've got to know what the basics is. So South Africa grapples with the fact that we've got the highest mobile data costs, but the reality is without affordable data, having a smartphone or a basic computer holds little value for students. So, you know, that's always remains a challenge.
Yeah, that's true. You're talking about only 16% of adults owning a computer, and you also spoke about the unfortunate prices when it comes to internet connectivity. 82% of households have got internet connectivity in South Africa, but low capability. Now, how do we shift the national conversation from connectivity to capability?
You know, I think it's about actually shifting that we ask the question differently. So instead of asking, are people connected, we need to almost ask, what can people actually do with the connection? And South Africa's got high internet access, but, you know, the question is how this access or this internet is actually being used. You know, you need to be able to write a CV, complete job applications, fill out government forms. It's not more just about being on a smartphone and being, you know, been sending WhatsApp messages. So since learners have got access to mobile phones rather than the desktops, we need to focus on being able to have cloud-based navigation, internet safety. And I think, you know, a useful analogy in this is connection with our capability is almost like having a library card, but not being able to read. So access matters, but it only becomes powerful when people have the digital skills to use it. And we almost need to reframe the narrative that digital access in the public imagination is from a luxury consumer good, but it actually has to be a critical civic tool. So we have to frame it as a human right. We have to elevate this, the being connected and being empowered. So there really is quite a bit of work that has to be done.
You know, Barbara, some people say that, you know, trying to get an electronic device, a computer or a tablet, would cost quite a lot. And average wages, I think, about 5,500. So it's beyond a lot of people's pockets. What can we do about that?
Correct. You know, what you're saying is the median monthly wage is about 5,400, and entry-level laptops cost 6,000 Rand upwards. So it's simply just not realistic for most, and we need to, you know, take cognizance of that. And we at ICB certainly have found that because we give a support system to so many students, about how basic computer courses are important. So what we've done is we've offered a free basic computer course for learners to use. But I mean, that's just one start. But we have to make computers available in controlled ways, so that would have to be, computer labs at colleges and libraries, and maybe stay open a little bit longer to accommodate learners, or maybe give some more like fiber that they can use at the colleges, and corporates, any retiring laptops or desktops that they have, is to make that accessible to colleges or to areas that need. And then there's organizations such as Computer Lab that also help disadvantaged computers and disadvantaged areas, and one could look at that on Computer Lab online to see what they have. But those are some solutions to a much bigger problem.
Yeah, and talking about schools, they're a major point of access is about 11,000 public schools, and they have no computer centers. What should we prioritize? I mean, how do you get them to touch a computer while you're still at school?
It is a big problem, but we look at it as, having a computer lab is one thing, but you need to have a teacher. So I would say the first thing to prioritize is teachers, and also to make those teachers confident. So this means that we need to provide continuous professional development programs that equip these teachers to have this digital skill, partnering with things like the Department of Communications to help. They can help with high-speed internet, creating partnership with tech companies, collaboration with tech companies also would help. But it goes back to when I said that we're going to speak a lot about confidence, is teachers need practical skills in everyday digital tasks, how to use an email, how to use online exams, presentation skills. So a single workshop isn't enough. We need to actually provide these teachers with continuous support. So digital skills should help teachers improve learning. And each school then can identify maybe confident teachers that can be identified for this skill. And equipping teachers must include the infrastructure they need to practice and apply in the classrooms. And again, it goes back, it must be a non-judgmental digital readiness check. And part of that, I think, institutions shouldn't just assume that first-year students know how a computer works. So students need hands-on training with the essentials. Every student should leave, firstly, their week one institution in terms of how to log in, how to find course material, how to submit assignments. And the program should cover like how to type, how to format an assignment to use professionally. And because plagiarism is a big thing in colleges, and how to work through this. So yeah, it's a lot of work, but I think it starts with empowering the teachers, and then the confidence that goes along with it, the confidence for the teachers, but also confidence for the learners.
Yeah. So you're talking about us creating some kind of foundation for the AI era. You mentioned keyboards, mouse, saving files, browser, navigation, and stuff like that. When can we get it into the school system?
This is a non-negotiable that people need to have the basics skills in terms of the keyboard usage. The AI is important, very important, but that's like almost like the next step. So AI might feel advanced, but people still need the basic digital skills. So that's almost where we need to start. So it's almost the alphabet of digital participation, if you want to call it that. Once a learner knows how to work a computer, can create and submit work, then they can start using AI responsibly and as an add-on. But without the basic skills, they're basically still locked out of these opportunities.
Yeah, one of the things that I'm sure you discovered from some of the surveys that you carried out, 73% of South Africans barely register the term AI. How do we introduce AI meaningfully to people who have no idea about computers?
And I think that goes back to basically to the grassroots. Is we can't introduce AI meaningfully by starting with just the technology. We've got to start almost with people's lives. AI first can be made practical, and it's got to be something that people actually can identify that with, and they need comfort in order to start using it effectively. So many people don't even realize how much they're using AI through a smartphone. And that's from voice search, translations, learning apps, the banking apps. So teaching AI is a support tool, but it's not a shortcut. So people should understand that AI can explain, translate, summarize, but AI becomes meaningful when people know how it actually will help them in which to apply for a job, improve a CV, practice, learn English better, understand schoolwork. So it's not just practical or the training should be practical and immediately useful and not just theoretical.
So, Barbara, maybe the starting point should be the use of smartphones as a means to introduce AI to the masses in South Africa. It's possibly the only smart device they have handled. And so how can they be taught effectively on the phone how to work AI?
Smartphones certainly have their place in the community. I mean, a smartphone is a wonderful starting point because learners can watch tutorials, they can search for information, they can practice communication, and they can start experimenting with some AI login. But a phone has limits. But a phone is a bridge, not a destination. People still need hands-on experience with regards to laptops and desktops. Success certainly is balancing mobile-friendly theory with hands-on desktop execution and in-person training. And it's in terms of employees can effectively learn the basics of large modules by learning to structure various things and learning about Gemini and ChatGPT. And I mean, then there's Claude. There's so many that you can actually learn from. But yes, mastering hands-on deployment and Excel spreadsheets definitely need to be done on a laptop. But teaching people how to fast track and verify accuracy of information needs to be done on a desktop. But then again, there's soft skills and emotional intelligence. So building empathy, team collaboration, that still needs the human interaction, and that's where the confidence and the role play and the mentorship in either the college environment or the education environment, as well as the work environment.
Yeah, let's talk about the workplace. When new employees arrive without basic computer skills, what is the real cost to businesses and to individual career progress?
I think that's where frustration from an employer's perspective is that they're expecting learners to be computer ready and to almost be able to deliver on day one. So it certainly puts pressure on the workplace to have them start the training with computers. But for the individual, the cost is more serious, and that goes back to the confidence. They lose confidence and they feel that they might appear less capable than what they really are. And that then becomes a compounding issue because that becomes a dignity issue. And that's why we feel that fundamental training is not just a business issue, but it's a confidence and an inclusion issue.
Okay, so Barbara, if we take this chat beyond computer ownership, what matrix would South Africa employ in order to close this gap?
There's a couple of things that we could do. So South Africa should track who has regular access to a smartphone or a computer and also reliable internet, and then take into consideration various communities, poorer communities, urban, rural communities. The cost of data, digital access is an affordability issue. If data is too expensive, people can remain connected in theory, but in practice are actually excluded from the process. And then there's, again, like I said, the urban and rural communities where it makes difference. And then just in terms of basic computer skills, again, being able to use email, typing documents. I mean, if you've got to apply anything at the government, you need to be able to do that online. So we have to be able to effectively get people onto digital tools that help them in their daily life, school, and of course the workplace.
if we were to take a look at the data cost as a problem, do you think data costs should be subsidized by government?
I certainly think that that's something that would be great if the government would take digital inclusion in scale. And this it would expand to affordable broadband, improving school infrastructure, so that people aren't left behind. And then, of course, there's the business side of things. It's got a practical role to play with the potential funding of training, offering workplace exposure. And then there's the colleges that could play a role in that in terms of digital access becoming digital capability. So their role would be there to teach the practicality. So it's a combined approach, I think.
Yeah. For adults already in the workplace, Barbara, who have never had access before, what is the most dignified and effective way of putting them up to speed?
I've been talking about confidence a lot, but it goes back to that. The fastest way to build confidence is about useful wins. So adults should leave each session that they are able to do something that they couldn't do before, because that builds skill, but it also builds self-belief and confidence. So I think the most dignified way is to remove shame from the process. So training should always be practical and respectful. And I think where employers and colleges can help and universities is to find out what the learner or the employee can or can't do. Training should be based on and linked to real work tasks. Even simple things like how to attend and log into a Teams or a Zoom call, because we know that's the very important way of communicating. Yeah. And then maybe creating like a mentorship and a peer support in the workplace by pairing less confident employees with stronger employees, and then possibly getting staff during a workday to practice new skills. They're going to make mistakes, but that's how they build confidence, and to do it always with dignity. And I think just avoiding exclusion.
So, Barbara, in conclusion, if you could ask government and business to do one thing in the next 12 months to close the gap and change the trajectory, what would you recommend?
I think businesses and government can turn the digital skills into a pathway to work. So instead of donating services and funding of workshops, companies should help people gain practical workplace skills. Companies can change government, should I say, can change the digital divide trajectory by treating digital access and digital literacy as a national basic service. We need to see this as a critical skill as opposed to an absolute need and not just a want.
Barbara, thank you so much for having joined me tonight, and we wish you only the best.
Awesome. Thank you very much for having me. Have a lovely evening.
Thank you. This is Channel Africa.